So we're here at Silicon Beach. I'm here with Matt Ballantine, who is the founder and big cheese at Stamp London. Hello!
Hey!
So, yeah, I was a sort of grand fromage, if you want. So what is it you do?
I am working on ways to help organisations to play. Certainly larger organisations have got themselves into a position where they have lost the ability to do things just for the sheer hell of it.
Yeah.
And people within those organisations are not given the space to do things just for the sheer hell of it. And that's an issue, because if you want to do things differently, you have to be able to do things with a goal in mind, but without necessarily knowing the way you're going to get there. And so I'm doing work at the moment to be able to see how I can help organisations to challenge themselves, and individuals in organisations challenge themselves to be able to start just doing things for the sheer hell of it.
So tell us a little bit more about play and actually how you can play within an organisation, because I guess the natural thing that people will balk at is that play feels as if it's disrespectful, irreverent, or not productive enough, and therefore isn't something that works within an organisation. So how is it that people need to look at play and how it can be used as a way to add value?
So I have spent a lot of time over the last few years observing the way in which my children play. They're 5 and 6 and they're obsessed with Lego. And they've got 3 basic ways in which they use Lego. The first way I describe as battle combat mode. And battle combat mode, they're both boys, and so they'll just throw the stuff across the room at each other. The room ends up in a total mess. They'll build guns out of it, which I'm thoroughly disapproving of, but they can't stop them anyway. And I didn't think initially there was that, this is a bit of, light relief within some sort of bizarre management metaphor, but actually organisations, when it comes to thinking about innovation, I think they do a lot of this combat battle mode. They will throw new technology as a way to be able to try to dumb down the competition. They will throw it out. Increasingly seeing I think as like PR tech, where you have companies who have nothing to do with technology producing technology purely for the PR and press they can generate to show how innovative an organisation they are. Pizza companies producing DJ pizza boxes, which have got nothing to do with anything other than just raising their kind of brand profile. And that battle combat mode, it doesn't lead to anything real. It leads to a lot of mess. Certainly at home, it leads to a lot of mess. The second way my kids use Lego, play with Lego, is IKEA mode. This is part of a deep, dark conspiracy by the Nordics to be able to prime us in later life to be able to do flat pack furniture. And the kids will have a set which they'll get the instructions for. They'll follow methodically the instructions to be able to get to some known outcome. A boat, a ship, a Nexus Knights, or a Ninjago thing, and they get a lot of enjoyment out of it. It's a puzzle, problem solving, follow the steps. It's a bit like doing a jigsaw puzzle, basically. This is what I think big organisations particularly are hardwired to do. They're there to be able to develop processes with known outcomes, to be able to follow best practice, to be able to do things repeatedly, to be able to know what it is you're going to do before you do it. It's all planned out, it's all great. That's brilliant for doing mass production, industrialised scale, doing things a lot, massive repeating process and those kind of things. And it's great if you know what the problem is and you know what the solution is. But a lot of the challenges that organisations are facing at the moment, and it's not just within the kind of creative sectors, it's across organisations as a whole, a lot of the problems they've got, they don't know what the problem is and they don't know what the solution is, so following a set of instructions isn't going to get them there. The number of times I've had organisations say to me, we want to be really innovative, can you show us somebody who's done it before? And that's such a, an oxymoron. So the third mode that the kids play with Lego is the tinkering mode, the being able to spend time not really knowing what they're doing, going off on tangents, building things, knocking things apart, sticking things together. And that, for me, that's where the ethos and what I thought Lego was all about. It seems to have turned into a bit of a mass branding exercise now, but that way in which they can just use their imagination to explore ideas. And some of those things end up going on their shelf. They will keep some of the things that come out of that, and they'll be proud of these things that they've created. This is the mode that I think organisations find almost impossible. And the reason they find it so difficult is because you don't know what it is you're going to get to as the outcome. And what I'm at the moment exploring is trying to identify organisations where they do seem to be getting it. And I'm starting to talk with people in all sorts of sectors where they are making that space, and they are willing to say, we've got a goal, we've got a great objective over here, but we can't pre-describe actually how we're going to get there, so we know we've got to allow people to tinker. They've got to be able to use their imagination and adapt and try things out and take steps in certain directions. And that kind of mode of working, I think, is what organisations need to be able to... It's kind of building this muscle to play. I'm also quite obsessed with the idea of talking about it as play and talking about it as experimentation and talking about it as going on a journey and positive terms. And I know that play is kind of, that's not work, is it? But equally what we hear a lot, especially in kind of the agile world, the technology development world, is how powerful failure is. And I don't think that works, because you can't get past it's okay to fail, except if it's that failure. And if it's that failure, you're fired. The term fail, the term failure is so loaded, it's so culturally biased to bad things that saying you need to be encouraged to fail, I just don't think works. And so maybe what I'm hoping out of the work I'm doing at the moment is just play also enables people to be able to overcome some of those cultural barriers to be able to start to experiment more. And it's at two levels. At one level it's organisational, so how do you make space, how do you make sure that you are rewarding the ability for people to play, how are you giving them space but direction, how do you make sure that the culture is accepting of it, that when people seem to be doing something that doesn't have an immediate purpose, they can be confident that they're doing it for a greater reason. And then at an individual level, it's about how do you spread yourself in a way that you're enabling yourself to be able to open to new ideas. And that could be about how you extend your network. Most people network in quite a non-diverse way. They network with people who work in the same organisation, and they network with people who are in the same sector. People who get this idea of play are really profligate with the way in which they network. They know people from all sorts of organisations and all sorts of different sectors, because then they can cross-pollinate ideas. They can play with ideas with people who've got no experience in their field, and then you get great things coming from that. You can just go out and buy something. There's all these cheap consumer technology things now. A lot of them, people look at it and go, I don't understand what that's for. Play is about not saying what is it for, it's about saying, what could I get this to do? What would this internet connected plug socket enable me to do? What would this 3D camera enable me to do? Because until you start playing with it, you're never going to know. Yeah. If you're looking for a manual, you'll be waiting for everybody else to work it out, and then you're just following everyone. So. Yeah.
It was one of these internet-connected plug sockets. One of my friends who works for Google in Singapore, he did an experiment when his wife was away one weekend. And his whole thing was he created a little sequence online using if this, then that, yep. That when somebody followed him on Twitter, it would then switch on this plug socket. And the plug socket switched on a fan. And the fan blew a little flag that had a thumb on it to say, somebody likes this, somebody's followed you. And what I really loved about it was moving from the electronics into the sort of analog world, and it was a very playful thing to do. Yeah. Not massively useful, but very beautiful.
But the idea of the usefulness of it, I think this is where it becomes really important. A lot of people, and in business mindset, will go, yes, what's the point? The point is emerging ideas, emerging technologies, when they first emerge, they're novelties. Nobody knows quite what to do with them. The people who are able to be able to take advantage of those ones are the ones who go, how do I play with this? How can I make that work? So examples like that, where people are starting to stitch together various bits of technology to do something essentially pointless, but it enables them to learn how to be able to stitch those things together. one of the most incredible projects I've seen in the last year or so is a thing called openaps.org. It's a group of people, some geeks, some diabetes type 1 sufferers, who've got together and they've created a closed loop artificial pancreas. They've taken commodity items of technology, an insulin monitor, a glucose pump, a Raspberry Pi, some code, a controller device, stitched it together, and from that they now have a closed loop artificial pancreas, something that the medical industry has not been able to do. So the openaps.org organisation, I think their hashtag is something like "We cannot wait." I've put this in front of people in senior positions in one of the NHS CCGs, clinical commissioning groups, and on the one hand that's kind of, oh, this isn't proper medicine, it's not been done by our industry, we can't do it. On the other hand, I then started to talk to them about, well, what if actually part of delivering healthcare was to be creating maker communities in your area to be able to help with people with medical conditions or mental health conditions, to be able to use these amazing but now really cheap technologies, stitching them together to find ways to help themselves. And at that point you start to get into, this isn't just playing around and I've got a like and there's a flag to show. This is getting into real important stuff that is going to make a difference in communities. Communities are doing this, big organisations really struggle. And that's where it starts to get really interesting. And so that's what I'm trying to be able to help both community groups and also be able to look at how big organisations can start to take advantage of learning to play.
So on a final note, with the idea of play, imagine that we've got someone here who's working for a large organisation that's quite risk averse, and we want to give them some top tips on how they can use play in a way that's going to be of value to the organisation. What would those top tips be?
First thing, meet up with somebody you haven't seen for a while who you know works in a different sort of world to you. Go and have a chat with them. Talk about what you do, talk about what they do, find where the connections are. I mean, as simple as that. I mean, it might not be, Lego stuff, but actually it's that kind of thing. Go and play and see where it takes. And it doesn't have to be big, innovative bits of technology. It's really, really simple human stuff, like just going to talk to people.
Fantastic. Matt, thank you very much indeed.
You're very welcome.
Did it cut out itself, or have we got...